Hello, welcome to Relatable on the Go. This is your host, Teresa Freeman. On the Go provides real advice and real insight from real industry experts in just 15 minutes or less. Enjoy this episode and please click subscribe so you can have access to our latest content. And as always, be sure to stay connected. In this episode of On the Go, I speak with Jessica Alville, Creative Director. Great highlights here include learning about being a copywriter, van life, and the importance of empathy and collaboration. To hear our long form interview, check out my podcast, Relatable, on your favorite streaming platform, or visit tfasoftskills.com. Enjoy this episode. Tell me about your career path in life.
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, I think to your point about it being elusive, I had a really non-traditional path into advertising. I have been a writer my whole life. There was really no question that that's what I was going to do. And then I went to Belmont University in Nashville, and you had to take a class that, like, I think unformally was called What the Hell Do I Do with My English Degree? And someone came in, he was a copywriter at an agency in town, and he was like, we drink at work and we play basketball at work and we're creative all day. And I was like, I've never heard of this. What do you do? He's like, I'm a copywriter. I was like, I have to do that. And so that was really the only time I had ever thought I could do an office job. I think the idea of doing an office job sort of terrified me, outside of getting to be creative. So, having said that, most people who get into advertising would go to portfolio school. That's the standard path. You go, you choose a discipline, you work, study existing advertising, and build your portfolio book.
Right.
That's what you use to get hired. So I didn't know any of this. Even honestly, after my internship, they'd never had a copywriting intern before. They didn't really know how to set me up. So I had to really kind of come in through the back way into advertising. So I freelanced basically for anyone that I could, writing websites. I think one of the first things I wrote was an advertisement that goes on the back of the bathroom stall that you would see.
Yeah.
What's great is, I still have that client. It's 10 years later now. And recently I helped him name a restaurant. So pretty incredible to watch it grow. Yeah, but it was not a traditional path into advertising. I sort of hopped from freelance, sustaining myself mostly as a nanny for a couple of years. Eventually got my first temp writing job at a real estate agency in Chicago, and then moved to Detroit to take my first full-time in-house role. Had a couple agencies, blah, blah, blah. So
what helped you stay resilient while pursuing your career?
A lot of time it felt like I was kind of yelling into a void, right? I have distinct memories actually, of sitting in the apartment of the 6-month-old baby I was nannying, his family, and he would nap. And when he would nap, I would take any free course that I could find online. And even as I was doing it, there was this sense of, gosh, is this going to pay off? In any way? I'm a joke, kind of. I'm sort of pretending to do this thing. And I don't know what inside of me, I hesitate to say this because I don't want to make a sweeping statement for everyone, but I know for me, I can kind of trust my gut, and it wasn't everything that I wanted to do. I didn't pursue. I used to be a musician, a singer, and there was a definitive point in Nashville when I had to make a choice. It was I believe that I could have a career as a writer. I believe there is a chance I could be a singer. I think it's a smaller chance. If I'm true to what I feel like I know I need, I'll be okay if I don't make an album that everyone hears. I can make music for myself, but I need to do this. I need to be a writer. And I could feel that in me. And I think if you honor that, things unfold. It wasn't linear, but it did unfold. And I guess I just had to keep believing that. That sounds so, I
Yeah.
wish I had something bigger to say to that, but I think I like how you said it. Like, I think you do just kind of have to bet on yourself. Yeah, I think
Um,
so. I think also that I was a people pleaser. And
yes.
like, I thought about it's a fight, to not like, I
Yeah.
think about it often. I think a lot of people were like the creative directors of my life because I could kind of see this imaginary version of what I thought they wanted me to be. And so I was always kind of acting reactionary. Right. And it wasn't until I kind
Mm,
of learned to lead with what I knew about myself rather than trying to reflect or be reactive to what I assumed
right.
a situation I was going into was going to be like. Then I had all of this freedom because, man, when you go into a situation and you've decided already, I'm curious, I'm open, I'm secure, you're like, you're kind of unflappable in a way, right?
Yeah.
Because it's,
Yeah,
even
for
if the
sure.
person might not respond in the way you'd appreciate them to, like, that's not where your security comes from. Um,
Right.
so I think that's, oh my goodness, that's like the biggest lesson. And it's too, for someone who wants to go into a creative career, so critical because being in advertising means having a perspective. So that's one thing I always say to young women when I talk to them about getting
Mhm.
into advertising. It's like practice having your own perspective and standing solidly in it because that's the whole job,
Yeah.
really.
That's awesome. All right. Tell us about van life.
Well, not to make everything about tinnitus, but it was kind of about the tinnitus. Again, it was like I had a year where I was working and I think my anxiety played in a lot to that. It felt very safe, right? To sit at home at my desk and work.
Right.
And I would have things I wanted to do. Like, wow, wouldn't it would be so cool to go skydiving? It'd be so cool to go to that bar, where I know my friends are and just have a night with them. But I'd be, ooh, what if I feel sick? What if I get anxious? It'll just be better to stay home. Then I have tinnitus. After that, I was like, forget that. Every single day, I'm doing something that if I go to sleep at night, I'm going to be like, you know what? Lived my life today. Even if it was just like went on a walk to a store I've always wanted to go to and bought myself some flowers. It's like we're doing life every day. And I've always wanted to do van life. And I have had a girlfriend who hooked me up with a woman who had a van in Utah. She's like, hey, I'll cut you a great deal if you want to come out and experience this. I had never been on a hike alone in my life. I go out and do this and just start hiking alone in Utah, just traveling around in this van, hiking alone. I was not an outdoorsy person. All of a sudden I'm living in this box. Best thing I've ever done. It's like,
Really?
yeah, I know, you have that sometimes, like you get to the end of the year, or maybe this is sad if it's just me. You're kind of like, you're making a lot of New Year's resolutions because you're like, oh my God, I didn't do enough this year. I'm turning 31 next week.
Oh, happy
Um,
birthday.
Thank you. Um, and I'm like, wow, I lived the heck out of this year. Like I have no regrets. I feel like I really, yeah. Oh man.
How did van life help you to manage anxiety and fear?
Yeah. Again, the tinnitus a little bit helped me
Yeah.
learn. I had that same pattern. When you have a ringing in your head that's invisible to everyone else and only you can decide to get out of bed, you start to learn like, I've got me, right?
Mm,
Um, I think that's something though that like essentially I was proving to myself every day in the van. Because when I hike 21 miles in a day, I'm like, okay, I've got me, right? Like I know that I can do this. I'm strong. I'm showing myself. Um, and I think I felt exactly the way you're describing with
mhm.
anxiety, down to like little things that I felt like I just told myself I wasn't capable of doing. Like I'm not capable of building a comfortable life for myself. It's kind of this belief that I had. And every day in the van, it just put me into positions to kind of prove that wasn't true.
Mhm.
The little things that go wrong, like something's wrong with the electricity. Now you don't have any lights or your solar power is down. Or you get the van stuck somewhere, you're lost while you're hiking. It really is kind of trial by fire. You're learning
Yeah.
uh, how to just be there for yourself because it's true. I mean, ultimately, you have everything you need to support yourself.
Right.
You got to sometimes get the evidence to put in the face
Right.
of the
Yeah.
lies, right? Of what you're
Yeah.
hearing.
Favorite soft skills for success?
Um, just having empathy. Um, Building that helps you build relationships, right? Our work is really hard. we're not saving lives, but it's extremely demanding. There's a lot of late nights, a lot of rejection, and it's emotional. And I think just like looking
Mhm.
out for what people are feeling and experiencing, and being able to do little things that show that you recognize they're a human, like, hey, I got you this coffee, or now during the pandemic, like, I'm Venmoing you for a coffee because I know you had a hard day. Like those little things that connect you with people go a long way when you're kind of in the trenches with them. So I would say that. And that, I mean, that also translates to a lot of our job is collaborative. So if I have empathy for you and I am respecting you and I see you as a person, I'm not going into a brainstorm with you with the idea that I'm going to beat you. I'm like, how can we meet as people and generate a really good idea? There are plenty of people who come into the process with the idea that they want to best everyone. And some of them have successful careers. That's not me. I had to learn how to form partnerships in a competitive environment, being more of like a, I'm just not, I'm not going to elbow everybody on my way to get to the donuts. That's like not my vibe.
Yeah.
Um, so maybe that's a soft skill. I think the other one that comes to mind
For
is one
sure.
that's really learning, which is how to be authentic as a leader. I
Yeah.
think that's something I'm really working on, because I think you get into leadership and all of a sudden you want to model everything you've seen, and you kind of almost like step into like, this is how a creative director behaves. And you forget like you were just on the other side of the table and what you would have appreciated hearing. And I find myself wanting to like sugarcoat things or, talk in a certain way. And I've just really been working on like leveling that out. Like, how can I approach this authentically? That doesn't mean like not having boundaries and not protecting my team from certain things, but, respecting them human to human.
Mhm.
It's challenging. It's really challenging when you've got, 15 people looking at you on their Zoom squares and they're pissed. It's like,
Is yeah.
learning. So that's what I'm working on.
Yeah. Out advice to young Jessica.
Yeah. Find an advocate for yourself.
Mm.
I think, you know, one, I definitely looked in the wrong places. I had two copywriters I wanted to be my mentors. Both were straight white men. Look, I love straight white men. I have plenty of friends who are straight white men. However, they weren't going to understand the intricacies of my experience. I still respect both of those people as copywriters, but I needed to find someone who could be an advocate that understood my experience, right? Because, and I say this too, when I'm speaking to younger groups of people, I acknowledge like I'm a cis white female from a family with money to pay for my college, which means the risks and the decisions that I've made don't translate one-to-one for everyone. And I think it's really important to get advice from someone who shares your life experience and can understand it and really give you wisdom that's tailored more to you. And that's not to say you shouldn't have voices that are different from you. It's just, if someone's going to be key advising you, they really need to understand what it's like to be in your shoes, right? And so I think finding a woman who was where I wanted to go, because they're out there. You might have to send 100 cold calls, but I know from working in advertising, I mean, I would say I'm one of them, but I have a lot of peers who would love to get a virtual coffee with or mentor a woman who wants to be in advertising. And I wish that I had not tried to go it alone. Because when I did ultimately find those people, I mean, oh my gosh, changes everything. It's huge.
Key takeaways from this episode include: you don't have to follow a linear path to get your dream job. Follow your gut and your instincts. Practice having your own perspective and standing solidly in it. Find an advocate that understands you. Thank you to Jessica for this awesome conversation and for sharing your insight and for being so open and vulnerable. Thank you to our audience for watching or listening to this episode of On the Go. Please take a moment and subscribe to our YouTube channel, TFA Soft Skills. And if you want to hear more of my interviews, please check out our Relatable podcast on your favorite streaming platform or the website tfasoftskills.com. Until next time, this is Teresa Freeman with Relatable on the Go. Remember to stay connected.